Gotta wait for people to come on.
Yep. So,
Oops. Nobody's on here yet, but we can still introduce if you want to. So,
yeah, well, here we are again for another show.
yeah.
Um, we have great guests today. I've been following this couple for quite a few months, and they've got some really cool stuff going on. Actually, developing a relationship with a group near their home, and in a very short time, also. So, uh, here we go. You ready, Lewis?
Yeah, here we go.
All right. Here we have Ken King with his lovely wife, Rachel.
Welcome
Arkansas Bigfoot.
everybody.
So,
now you guys,
how are you all?
you see the face from the business side of that camera all the time. All the cool jokes and I know I kept hearing his voice, but never got to see his face. So now we get to.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate you guys coming on here for us and telling us your evidence. Appreciate it.
So,
glad to see everybody and hope that we've got some interesting things to share or talk about with everyone tonight. So if you've got any questions, we can kick it and get the ball rolling.
Well, let's start out by what got you into the Bigfooting? What made you a believer, or were you always a believer before?
For myself, I was always kind of on the fence because I suspected and kind of knew and kind of hoped that there was such a thing. But then I, get involved with work and day-to-day stuff and just kind of brush it aside and not think about it again. But in retrospect, I had a lot of things that happened over the years when I would be out in the woods hunting or fishing, or I probably spent 80% of my waking life outside doing stuff and thinking about some of the occurrences that had happened. It all started to make sense later down the road that, these were interactions, these were activities going on. I just wasn't paying close enough attention at the time
Right.
to be aware of it.
Mm-hmm. And what about you? You're always a believer, or?
I think so, actually. I grew up spending a lot of time in Big Bear, and Darren, even after I met Ken, I was out in the woods with him. And I think I have to agree that, and we were young when we met, but I'd have to agree that there were a lot of circumstances that probably were calling to us then, but in our hustle, not paying attention. I don't know that I remember anything specific as a child, but there again, we lose a lot of those little memories sometimes, or maybe intentionally.
Yeah.
And then it was probably a couple of years ago, it really started calling us. And we absorbed ourselves with information. And I think it really resonated, but it wasn't until this last year that we started really getting the validation that we were looking for,
And it all started right where you're living now, right?
Right.
Okay.
There have been little things that occurred over this past year that you would hear some odd sounds, or something just seemed out of place, or you put something down in the backyard and come back a day later and it was not there or moved somewhere else, or just odd and end things like that. And I went out in the woods one afternoon. I wanted to try to find some corkscrew saplings to make walking sticks out of.
Oh.
And I got a little ways into the woods and I heard the brush rattle, stepped a few more steps into the woods, and great big reddish brown, dark reddish brown got up on 2 feet, bolted through the brush. It was all in a matter of a second and a half to 2 seconds.
They are fast.
Now, when I'm feeling good, I'm 6'3", 260 pounds. I'm not a little boy. This thing made me feel like a midget. And that just in comparison to the overall size of how I felt toward it. And we were probably 75 yards apart from each other, and the massiveness of it was still huge in comparison. But that was the confirmation, and we started going back into the woods and kind of looking around, and we were finding little glyphs and some structures that just didn't look natural or normal. And
there was something very unusual about this environment to begin with that we had not had the opportunity to notice before, and it just felt very, when I was a kid, we joke about elves and fairies and things like this, or a woods being elemental. It was just the generation I grew up in. My grandmother was Scotch Irish, so everything was a tale. But there was something very distinct about this woods that just set it apart from any other. And we've been in forestry. We've been, your normal Midwestern woods. We've been all over the place, and I'd never felt anything quite like what we felt there.
That's what I was going to ask you. What was the first thing that got you to think that there was something out there? Was it the feelings, or was it just the odd occurrences that you guys occurred?
Well, it was that sighting initially that said this is the aha moment.
Yeah.
And when I had told her about it, I think it was the next afternoon, we went out there.
And we walked.
And we stepped across the little creek, and there was this whole brand new arch built over the path that wasn't there the day before.
Oh.
Doorway. And she just felt the compulsion to ask permission to walk into the woods for whatever reason.
I just found myself instinctually, there really was no thought about it, but there was something instinctually that said you need to ask.
Right.
And I've never felt this in any set of woods I've ever been in, forest or otherwise. And I just found myself putting a hand on each sapling and just internally saying, can I proceed? It was as simple as that. And I got a distinct feeling of a yes. I don't think I heard anything, but it was that agreeableness. We got a few more feet, the same thing. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a long day. But each amount of space required that same process. And I've never had to do it since, unless we walk into an area we haven't been in. And once in a very blue moon, I get that same instinct.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing like that first day. And then we found a vine.
They had taken and woven and twisted like a rope and had braided it around a group of 4 or 5 smaller trees, probably 6 to 8 inches in diameter.
And it was tied off with a piece of bark or a piece of something. It wasn't at all, but it looked like young bark, Yeah. And it was woven around to hold it together. And I said, oh no, this isn't normal.
And they had made this entire circle around these trees, probably 12 foot in diameter.
Wow.
And that was
the beginning.
That was the mind-blowing part, because a deer, a bear, something like that isn't going to do that, and we knew that there hadn't been any other human activity back there. Mm-hmm. And so we felt compelled to take an apple out there.
Well, no, in fact, the next day I had worked, and ironically, Ken and I both got the exact same conviction: take apples to the woods. Just that clear. And he went and got some, and I came home saying we need to go get apples, and he said, all right, got them.
That's cool.
And that's where it began.
That's and like so they told you or something.
And I'm still thinking elementals. I'm still kind of in a little denial space, not really, but that's the only word I have for it. And I knew what he said he had thought he'd seen, and I wasn't doubting him, but I hadn't seen it for myself. But when we both got that same conviction, I found myself saying, okay, they want an offering of some kind. I don't know what apples mean, but let's, let's keep the gods happy and take some apples out. And that's when the gifting started.
So we did that, and the first few times we just put the apple in the vine work around that
First thought.
rope section. And then I got to thinking, well, maybe this is a raccoon, maybe this is a possum, maybe something is, normal is up there getting those.
Mhm.
So I brought a ball of string and hung it over and tied a little stick around it, cored out the apple, and we hung the apple from
Put the
the
stick
string.
through the core so that the stick was supporting the apple.
So it was free hanging in the middle of this rope circle. And the apples would still continue to disappear.
And we thought, well, now what?
And then we found a little small animal skull out there
Right at the base,
of where we had hung the apple.
it just showed up.
Just appeared.
And we thought, okay, there's something going on.
They're regifting you, right? I would think, right?
And we still have that.
That is way cool, man.
Yeah. And it was just a small, dry skull. It wasn't fresh, there's no meat on it or anything.
Yeah.
They just found it somewhere and decided to bring it.
That's awesome. There was a lady up in Washington, Barb and Gabby, that
Mhm.
Bigfoot. Yeah, they left a piece of rock there with on one side had gold on it as a gift. She was like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's crazy.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that's a coincidental thing either. If you look at the regions where the most prominent Bigfoot sightings are, it also overlays with the 411 cases. It also overlays with all of the mineral rich areas of the country.
And what was the other thing we found? One more thing.
I'll remember it in a minute.
But there's
But
several coincidences.
we had spent quite a bit of time in North Carolina, and one of my favorite hobbies was to go to the creeks and mine for gold. And once again, in retrospect, there was a lot of activity that was happening when we were out in the creeks in the mountains of North Carolina while we were panning in the creek looking for gold that can be attributed to Sasquatch activity. Of course, at the time, we were more focused on finding the shiny yellow metal, and we found quite a bit.
But we definitely feel like they are the keepers of these treasures. Back in the day, they'd talk about earth dragons or they'd talk about whatever. Well, these guys they protect and guard the treasures as well as, nature.
How often do you guys gift in a week? Do you guys go out every week or twice a week? And what do you guys take out there usually?
It's become
Probably twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
And what's their favorite stuff that they normally eat?
Apple.
Apples?
They love apples.
The green or red?
Well, we just tried the green. We haven't been back out yet, so we're gonna find out. But they definitely love the red ones.
Yeah.
And we've tried
Peanut
tried the peanut butter. We've taken candy out there, taken
suckers, little suckers.
just all kinds of stuff. I tried a bucket full of beans and cornbread.
They killed it.
They licked every bit of it
It
out.
was so dry when we got it back. I was like, oh my God. They didn't
I remember that video.
And
I remember both of those videos.
We took some cabbage stew out there. They love that. I think by nature, they're probably more herbivore. I have no doubt that in need they would take down a deer or take down anything they had to.
Right.
But whether their metabolism's different or, I can't imagine plants sustaining animals of this size. But then again, we don't know that their metabolism is anything like ours or what it's like.
And I'm kind of leaning more toward the omnivore. I think it's opportunistic, whatever is available at the time.
Yeah, I think they're the same too.
Yeah, I agree with that also.
But we took a grass braid out there one time, and they bit right out of the middle of it. This is how many inches?
That's probably 26 inches long.
About 26 inches, and they bit.
They left the ruff and they left the tip and they ate everything out of the center.
So if it was one bite, they didn't leave a lot, you know. And they left it there to show us that and it was a clean cut. I mean, it was a clean bite. So it was kind of fascinating. I would have thought if it had been a deer or something like that maybe more of it would have been gone and it would have been that distinct. It's almost like they just had their hands over the string of hands and bit in the middle and then set it back in.
Yeah, I heard they like beans. I heard they like pinto beans or something like that. But I don't remember if they wanted them cooked or not. but I heard they like them.
I don't know if they care.
I don't think they care. No.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I wouldn't.
Well, I know that timber giant Bigfoot, he stuck a piece of cooked steak on a stick, and they wouldn't touch it. He took it off and he put a raw piece, and the next day it was gone. So,
well, I can believe that. They want it in its natural state.
right, it's more familiar to them what they would eat in out there than it would be, So, it makes sense to me also. But your gifting has evolved over time, and
Right. They might have greater understanding for the organic nature of food too. That we have probably let go of just because we're who we are and we like what we like.
Right. Your gifting has evolved over time. What prompted you to do the sandbox?
It was curiosity more than anything. We wanted to see if they would use their fingers to make any type of marks or leave any type of impression in it. And we laid it out in that gifting tree and put a few trinkets and marbles around it. And it got a little bit of activity. Most of the time it would just get kind of stirred up, or they'd take a couple things out and move them around, or they would disappear for a few days and then they'd show back up again. And this went back and forth for several weeks.
Yeah, good month.
And then we went out one day after it had been raining again, which it has rained all winter here. And there was a great big huge handprint, like they had taken their hand with their fingers turned and just pushed down into it.
It was very intentional.
And it was 2.5 of my hand.
Yeah. That box is probably
14 by
to
8,
include the funding.
14 by 9.
Wow.
It filled the inside of the box for sure.
Wow. Do you guys ever cast your stuff at all?
We've got one laying here on the table. It was the first one that I had done, and I obviously am not any kind of expert on making casts, so when I tried to take it up out of the mud, it broke in half. But
We're not experts either, but
You may have to tell us when you've got a good shot.
I don't know if you can
Oh,
see that.
goodness. That's huge. Yeah, we see it. Wow, that's nice.
Yeah, what was that, Ken? Like 16, 17 inches? Wow, that's a big
Hit the mud and
cast.
kind of scared, so the back looks a little deformed. But that's one of them.
I think the toes look a little deformed.
Yeah. And we found them that the toes on the little toes, the smaller toes are more on the outside look to them. We've got one that the second toe is longer than all the rest of the toes. Junior, the young juvenile we call Junior, he's probably 8 or 9 inch. When we first started seeing his prints, they were probably 8 to 9 inches.
He's grown.
And now they're probably 11.
Yeah. He's getting up there.
But each one's got a unique footprint, just like a fingerprint. We haven't found where they look any different other than Junior's is growing, but the foot shape is still the same.
Dang. I would never find.
Some of them are wide, equally wide all the way to the heel, and we're thinking those might be female. So this might have been a female track. And then it seems like with Juniors and the ones that we think are, we call them Big Daddy, the alpha male. The ones that we think are theirs tend to taper a little more at the heel. So I don't know if that's a distinct trait between males and females or not, to be honest. But it's just kind of what we've noticed.
Well, it could be, and you could be on something too. Nobody ever said that before. So if you have that much activity around your house, you have a good chance of finding out that kind of stuff too. And that's what kind of research we need.
Kind of like having kids in your house, which one put what thing there because you get so familiar with how they act in the space, So, we've been out there a couple times a week at least ever since we started doing this, and you get a feel for how they're kind of moving around and doing their different things and know which one is guilty of which antic that they pulled. Junior is notorious for tossing a limb or tossing, baseball-sized rocks in our direction. He's never hit us with any of them.
If we don't pay attention to him, or if he doesn't hear his name come out of our mouths while we're out there, honest to Pete, something's going to happen.
Something will get thrown or something will get shook.
He loves attention, and that it tickles me because you wouldn't think that would be their nature. But I don't know if it's because we've been around him long enough that he's gotten used to that. He just feels neglected if he's not getting it.
It sounds like a typical child to me.
Yeah. They say that they're maybe 10 to 15 years old before they come off their mom. Do we know that? I don't know that. But, he acts like he's 10 to 15 years old. So maybe.
Yeah, an unruly teenager.
He has got a sick sense of humor.
That's one thing I've noticed and stuff of going out there is they definitely have a sense of humor. And it's not something that we would find funny, like throwing a softball-sized rock at you. You know what I mean? But they find it funny, and it's up in my research, they're coming right up to the edges of the tree lines and watching hundreds of people just go by with their dogs and their bikes. And, they're probably doing exactly what we're doing, studying us.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times if you got to really looking at some of those trails that people are taking and looking just beside them, even if they're in a cloaked form, we've noticed they are literally right next to where we're walking. In that, and a lot of times it'll show up as an anomaly in the picture, the video or photograph, and it's more of a, once in a while it's just a blurb, but other times I found that electronics will pick it up faster. Our eye won't see it, but electronics.
Well, northern Idaho, and here, they love to stay just in your peripheral vision, just right at the edge of your peripheral vision. Do you ever, get a lot of activity? Like you'll turn your head, I saw something, and,
Just about every time we're out there.
Yeah.
They stay just right on the fringe of where you can see or where you're looking at or paying attention to. And, a lot of people are divided in the whole camp of animal versus paranormal versus this, that, or the other. I don't understand what the argument is. I believe it's all a little bit of a mixture of everything. I think they are very much flesh and bone, and I think they very much have skills and abilities that we just haven't comprehended yet. And it's that simple. It's not some wild, crazy, mystical, magical thing. It's just science that hasn't been quantified yet to our understanding.
Right. I've noticed, I actually heard a little tidbit of information about the duck-billed platypus. It hunts its prey by sensing the minute electrical signals in its prey's muscles.
Exactly.
Now, if a duck-billed platypus can do that,
Exactly.
what are they able to do, especially if they use a higher percentage of their brain than a human?
And ultimately we're animals.
Hey, we are.
And I just think they're more evolved than we are. I hate to say that, but that's the truth.
Either
No, I agree.
Either that or we've all dummied down over the centuries.
That's also a possibility too. Public school systems are going. So,
And it's, there's a lot of things that contribute to that, but
yeah. Now you recently had a little experience where you didn't get to leave gifts out there. Yeah, you were out there. You care to tell that story?
Well,
it surprised us.
We went out there and we were going to take the bucket with all the apples and treats in it.
In fact, we have it.
And we had it with us. And we got within 10 feet of the tree and my phone rang. And we had to go leave the woods and go basically take some jumper cables and help somebody out.
And I had a couple of suckers in my pocket, and I had just enough time to put a couple of suckers in the tree, thinking we were going to finish it.
So we didn't go back to the woods that night. We come back out the next day and we get up to the tree, and that sandbox
is covered.
Just absolutely trashed and disarrayed. Everything's tore up and dug up. The limbs are thrown everywhere.
Gaping holes at the base of the tree on the inside where something had dug. And all that dirt was kicked over to that sandbox. We just stood there in awe for a second, like, well, guess we didn't leave the trees.
So imagine an 8-year-old on Christmas morning trying to dig down through all the paper to find the last present at the bottom. That's what it was similar to in the appearance of it. I think that Junior believed that we had came out there, left the stuff, and then he couldn't figure out where we hid it.
Because he found the suckers. And he knew the routine. Because I always, nearly always put the 2 suckers in. We have the apple. If there's something else in a bag, it'll be in a certain place.
So he tore that tree apart.
For all he was worth, he was going to find it. And at first we thought it was an act of rebelliousness. But then I said no, because if he was upset, he would have taken that sandbox and he'd have pitched it across the woods. Have no doubt. I think he was hunting it. I think he really thought we had left it and hid it. And like a game, he was going to find it. So we haven't done that since.
Now, if we go out there with anything, we're sure to leave it now.
That's funny.
He's always like, I have no doubt he knew we were there and that, that we had the bucket and he had treats somewhere. He didn't know where they were, but.
Yeah, you guys are going to become real good friends out there.
Yeah, they're working on it real quick.
I said a few times, they're almost worse than family. I don't think my kids.
So you guys have gone out there using dowsing rods.
Oh yeah, I want to hear about that.
Would you care to explain the theory behind that and what you may have figured out using it?
How does that work usually? I don't know how it works.
Or do you want to kick
well,
it
dowsing, I don't know.
All right. Dowsing rods are just a tool, no different than using a metal detector, no different than using, some people use pendulums to ask questions. It's a tool to find something. Traditionally, they were used to find water. They would use a willow branch or a peach branch or something like that, and it would find underground water where they would dig a well. But the copper rods especially are able to basically pick up what you're focusing on and asking a question on.
They're conducive, no different than they
Yeah.
are for electricity.
Exactly. And you can walk around in a yard and look for a lost ring or a coin or something like that, and it will take you literally right to where it's at and cross when it gets over the top.
If you focus on it.
If you focus on that. If you're asking a particular yes, no type of question, it can focus on and find that answer. So that's how that started, was we were basically asking questions. What do you think is back here? Do you think there's more than one? Do you think,
Just curiosity.
this, that, or whatever? Kind of doing the yes, no thing.
Now, since then, we've taken them and we've gone over different parts of what we found, like the arches or around the base of the trees. If you notice in the videos, there's circular, semicircular areas at the base of most of the trees now. It didn't used to be that way, but almost all of the trees now have them.
Looks like they've taken branches and made a corral around the bottom of the tree and then set down and put
And you can see where they
impressions
sat.
in the pine straw where they've sat around them or stood around them or however.
And when I get to those areas, the rods cross. Not at the arch, but at the base of those trees. And I started kind of testing as many as I came across. And every single one of, and no thought to the rods, no question to the rods, just walking through the woods and letting the rods be. And I'd get to those spots and they'd naturally cross.
Picking up the energy of the spot.
So we kind of concluded that maybe in the way that they frame out the base of these trees, it brings the energy. And this gets into simple science, really, but it brings the energy of the tree out as well. And they're almost like, we call them portal pads, where they can leapfrog if they have to, or they can just maintain their cloaking. And then when I get to the arches, the rods open straight up and almost point behind me. The force of energy is just pushing them back. Now, what the significance of that is, I don't know yet. So I'll be curious if they show me.
So then my mind wants to flip that next rock and take it just a little bit farther than that. So I went out there one afternoon while she was at work, and I just downloaded a simple EMF meter on my phone. And I walked around to those places, and let's say the average baseline reading through there was 47, 48.
49, yeah.
Whenever I would get to those ground structures, those glyph areas, sometimes they would spike up to 65 to 70. I had a few that spiked way beyond that, and that was just using the basic EMF map that I downloaded onto the phone. So, take that for whatever it's worth. I don't have a dedicated EMF meter to go out there and check it out, but that was just a curiosity and itch that I wanted to scratch.
And that's the kind of research, that we need too, is that kind of attitude, you're not sure, but just try it,
I can't help but wonder if they are close, if, in that we've experienced or have seen in videos later that they were right next to us, if maybe that EMF could be picking up on something electromagnetic around that, so it could vary depending on whether they're present or whether they're away from the space. It could vary somewhat also, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I didn't know that. I'd never seen that before, the way they did the little circle around the tree. I never would imagine there would have been any kind of energy from that, but that is really cool. I never knew that.
Spots, yeah, they have preferred because they will.
Rachel,
there's a few of them that we've found that have been more toward the outer edge of the woods that don't have that, and I think that's more or less a sentinel point where they're just kind of sitting, watching, seeing what's coming and going. But the ones that have this limb work around the base of the tree, those definitely put off an energy that's detectable.
And the ground nest that's by the second gifting spot in the videos, there's a huge amount of energy back there, but they have these corrals or, these trees everywhere. We've caught Junior doing a lot of work around that ground nest. I think that's kind of his space. We had this blue blanket thing going on for a long time, and shortly after we started gifting at that second tree, this ground nest started to develop. And this blanket was, oddly enough, we were walking through one day, and it's a quilting, like when you move freight or even a packing blanket. It's a blue quilted blanket. And we found it at the base of a tree, barely poking out from underneath pine straw. We don't even know how long it had been. So we pulled it out. It was soaking wet. It was nasty. And we left it lay on the ground. And it was only a few days later that the ground nest was started and the blue blanket was placed in the ground nest with almost everything we had brought him by way of toys or I've been taking some inexpensive aluminum beads out there. I don't know if it's the aluminum or if it's the color, but he has this fascinating for it. And one of them was like from the Dollar Tree, little jingle bells around Christmas time that I'd gotten at work. But I thought, I'm going to put this in the woods. Junior would like this. And it goes everywhere the blanket, and it moves from spot to spot. We started to call him Linus for a while because he just carries it everywhere.
That's pretty cool. Wow. You guys get a lot of stuff out there. That's amazing. I like it.
Lewis, we aren't even scratching the surface
I
of
know.
these
That's
two
why
yet.
we're dying here. And we have to wait for another week. If you guys find a tent in your backyard, I'm sorry, I'll be camping out.
But, we found the footprints everywhere. We pulled hair off of the gifting trees after they've been there and gathered up the stuff that we've left. I've got hair and a little bit of skin and stuff in a baggie here that, it is what it is. I don't think our stuff is going to, help prove anything any more so than stuff anyone else has collected. It's just things that we've gathered up for our own, personal pile of things.
And we started noticing they're using a lot more with sound to cloak. And I think sometimes they might be communicating. On one night video, it was these frogs. And then the next day, and we normally don't hear frogs during the day, but when we hear frogs during the day, there's a lot of activity going on. So we're thinking that they're using a lot of those natural sounds to try to
help mask their movement.
I agree with you 100% on that, because out in my area we get big airplanes and stuff that fly over, and if you don't focus on the airplane flying over, you can hear branches breaking in the bushes and stuff like that. You can actually hear something moving. So I completely agree that they do use the natural sounds to mask their own movement, and I know many people out there have said the same thing.
Lately, we're getting this. It sounds like a river
or like an ocean wave sound
or something like this.
It'll
or a waterfall.
come in and out on the audio like an ocean wave sound. And there's always activity whenever we start picking that up on the audio. I've got one video that I haven't uploaded yet that the audio is just horrible.
It's a night video.
Because of that. And it was when we went out during the full moon of March, and I had the directional microphone on it. It should be fantastic for picking up noise or like whatever is moving through the brush, but it sounds like you're standing on the beach listening to the ocean waves come in and out. It's just like this continuous
wave
over and over,
and it just sounds like water. It reminds me of a waterfall, and sometimes I can hear it when we're in the woods, and I don't think that much of it anymore because I've gotten so used to it. But that's the first time it was that bad on video.
But does it actually sound like water, or does it sound like more airy, or?
No, it sounds like water. It sounds like you're on the beach on a towel listening to the ocean waves come in and out.
It reminds me of a river, where a river's just got that kind of movement. And You'll just have to watch that night video. You'll know exactly what we're talking
I was
about.
only asking because I have my recorder I always put out, and I have talking on there, but it's really airy, and they do like really long. Hey, Forest Ninja, can you mute your microphone? It's loud.
The rain.
Yeah, perfect. And it's they talking on there, but it's really long and drug out. But you can hear the up and down when they're saying each word. But of course, you don't know the language, of course. But yeah, they're like, and it sounds really long. It sounds like it could have been like maybe that's what you're hearing, but you saying it sounds like an ocean, like water. So
Yeah, it's pretty. I don't know why they would use frogs one night and water another.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me, but
yeah, I even heard somebody killed a deer, or deer got killed by, I guess, a Bigfoot or something. And I guess they're not one. It was been there for a couple of days, and not one bug was on that deer. And they're wondering why that's happening too. Like, I don't know, did the bugs get scared of Bigfoot or something? I don't know. Kind of weird.
And that's odd that you bring that up, because we noticed after they basically claimed those gifting trees as that was their spot, nothing messes with it. I have spent a lot of time trying to find a raccoon footprint or some kind of an animal track around those trees where we put the food at, and there's nothing. No little varmint tracks at all. So
once in a while we do still find deer tracks, but it's toward the back, and then nothing near the trees.
That's why I quit messing with hanging the apples from the string. It was pointless, because I knew, if something's reaching up here 8 foot in the air and pulling an apple off of a string, it's not a raccoon.
Exactly.
We've had really weird, anomalous things happen with photography and video. Kenny had a horrible fight for a little while. He would download off of the camera, and the video would just be in random clips.
Mm-hmm.
One might be 16 minutes, another
one might
4
be
minutes.
3 minutes, and there'd be 2 or 3 minutes lost off of each one. And we had used the camera to do a test video, worked perfect. Did a half-hour walk through the woods. Everything came out great. When we went out there the next time, it was just all shuffled up and broken up. And
Uh-oh. Minor difficulties. We'll wait for them to come back, see what happens. Oh, man, they got some good stuff.
I told you.
My gosh.
There we go.
All right, there you are.
Happy.
I think we went off for a minute, didn't we?
Happy said ask about me spraying you with skunk foot spray.
Yeah.
Oh, Happy, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways.
Well, now you're gonna have to talk about that. What happened?
Pheromone incidents.
So I get out in the woods one day with Ken, and trust me, it's always a surprise with him. But he has this idea that he had included me in on about burning pheromone incense, which we used to do for our bulldogs to help bring them into heat, because they're kind of contrary about it. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, you're crazy. But okay, let's play,
We're going to get an oversexed she-squatch on the rampage.
And I'm getting this visual of one coming through in high heels and red lipstick and attacking his ass, and I'm going to laugh all the way to town. Pardon my French. But, I'm thinking, okay, well, then how do we get the skunk spray? You got sent from...
Went and got some cover scent, and it's basically the skunk cover spray. Never again.
I keep it handy just in case he's out of line, but
That's gross.
they don't like skunk any more than we do. I'm pretty sure, because we have no more activity than we did before.
And I think that's a bad rap that they get, because the smell that we smell when they're out there close, it's animal smell, but even though it's musty or musky or whatever, it's not.
We've never had skunk.
Now we do smell more of a sulfur base to it than a skunk base to it. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but you can smell just a slight hint of sulfur.
The only time we've smelled anything that was remotely skunky was one time we think we surprised, we'll call him Junior. We think he was asleep or on the other side because the wind was actually blowing toward us. And that's when we had all the vocalizations on the one video, and he was hollering, and then mom hollered back, and all this started going on. But he was in a sheer panic for a second.
And I think maybe they spray somewhat like a skunk would when they get excited, nervous, startled, or whatever.
That's what Kevin says.
Kind of an odor that they can emit like that.
Because that's the only time, and his behavior was entirely panicked.
Yeah, I agree with that. I had my research area. I had come around a bush and got growled at and literally jumped 10 feet to my left. But in that video, I ended up getting a lot of screenshots of actual faces and stuff. I think I sent one to Ken, and then started finding all kinds of them. So there's a trail that goes down back below the direction that one had gone, and I ended up walking down that. And when I got to literally almost directly in line to where I saw it, just the smell coming up the canyon. I mean, it was like a wall stink and a wall of nothing. And it was just, so yeah, I think they can definitely admit some sort of odor. To me, it smelled like a backed up city sewer kind of thing. But
well, that one area that we call Skunk Butt Island got its name because that's their outhouse. We've filmed piles of dung out there, but realistically, how many piles of dung does a person need to see? We know it's there. We can smell it.
We just watch where we're walking now.
Yeah, but that seems to be the spot that they like to use. I'm not talking little. I'm talking dung.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, how big are they? Eesh. You imagine?
So, I mean, in regards to the crap, does it look human? Does it look like a bear? Because
it looked like a human.
Because I actually, my wife actually found a huge pile of scat literally right next to a road in northern Idaho at the lime kilns up in northern Idaho. And I mean, it would have filled up a dinner plate.
Oof.
And if a human would have taken it, I mean, if I would have taken that dump, I wouldn't be able to sit down for a month. I'd probably have to go to the doctor and get stitches.
Exactly. Yeah, it looked like somebody spent about 6 hours with an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Gross.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because right behind the lime kiln sign was a little broken stick and 2 rocks. And it was just odd. It's actually on my other channel and stuff. I know Parkway SRG. He's fascinated by that crap that my wife found. It's just absolutely massive. But
I have no aversion to it. If they want to see us film more piles of poo, I'll be happy to entertain them. But
Bigger Christian.
Take a picture of my phone.
They were messing with the trail cam that Ken put up the first week of March. We collected it on the 7th.
It only stayed out there for one night because they threw a fit behind the house after we put it out there.
They don't like that camera, and we understand.
And we got one image that SoCal helped kind of get it fixed where you could actually see it in there, and we use it a lot on the intros to the video. But you can see the entire shadow face silhouette of him in the brush.
We think it's Junior, but we don't really know for sure, to be honest.
But they threw a fit over that being out there, so we just brought it up and hung it up behind the house.
And took it out
And
one more time.
the reason behind that was, I say he was coming up and getting things out of the yard, like he took one of my leather work gloves and carried it off 300 yards into the woods, came up and got a little golf ball and some other toys that the dog plays with in the backyard and carried those off into the woods. So we stuck it up on the shed looking out toward the woods behind the house.
But Ken had he only had a few photos, and we couldn't make anything out in him. And that was 3/6 and one early on. Is that right? On 3/7. He collected the camera on 3/7, brought it back. We downloaded it on the computer, and we had a picture for 3/8. And we're thinking, what? So we double checked.
If you're not following what she's saying, we took it out.
The dates.
We took it out one other time, and the timestamp on it, I took it on the 6th, and I collected it on the 7th. There was a picture timestamp for the 6th that showed me closing the door and hanging it up. A picture on the 7th of me opening the door to turn it off to take it down. And then another picture with the timestamp of the 8th. And all it showed was just the bare woods with nothing other than the trees and the brush. But it was timestamped for the day after I collected it.
But it was already on the back of your house when you won the 8th, right?
Right.
And we checked and double checked the camera settings to make sure the date was correct. We're thinking, how did we get one for tomorrow?
That's scary.
It doesn't happen. You know, so
That's
I've had
cool.
a lot of pictures taken on my iPhone when we've been walking out there, and they kind of look like, I don't even know how to describe them.
Yeah, no, didn't you have pictures on your phone from the inside of your car too that you couldn't explain?
I'd forgotten about that one. I was headed to work, and I always set my stuff in the seat, in the passenger seat, and I have a black interior on the car. And I think it was when I got home, my photos were open, and I hadn't touched my phone. And I thought, okay. And then I noticed there's these last 3 pictures that had been taken, and one is all black. So I'm thinking, okay, my interior is black. Maybe I bumped it. No big deal. The next one is, it looks like it could be through the windshield or something because there's a lot of light through it. And the last one was my arm on the armrest. And I'm thinking, I could not have feasibly, because I'm looking at the size of the picture, I could not have feasibly held that phone at that distance to get that angle of my arm, even if I wanted to. So
One of them showed
all
up.
3 different.
One showed up on there that looked like it was taken in the woods, but it hadn't been in the woods.
And it was all pastel colors. And it kind of struck me odd because I think Pappy and we had talked about particularly that we think that they can see the energy field around trees and plants and different things, and maybe even their arches have a certain glow or a certain essence, you know, that kind of helps guide their way on their own paths at night. We don't know.
If it puts off an energy that they can see, it would be like gigantic neon signs in the woods to them at nighttime.
One of the pictures they took, it was all the pinks, the greens, the blue, the white. There was nothing that looked like the woods. It was all in pastels. It was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen.
That's really cool. That's bizarre. I'll be like, woo.
Yeah.
That'd be creepy.
I'm grateful. I just makes you scratch your head a little.
I put my phone somewhere else during bed or bathroom. You know what I mean? If pictures start coming up, you know, put them somewhere else.
Out how one of them could fit in the other seat of my car.
Yeah, that's weird.
Without popping someone.
Wow. Well, we only got 6 more minutes. I know you guys got a lot more to do, and you guys are coming back next week, right? Next Sunday.
Right.
Okay. And if anybody on here doesn't know, it's Rachel and Ken, and they got a fantastic website. It is what Arkansas Bigfoot, right?
Not
right?
a website yet.
Yeah. Okay. So if you guys want to go check them out, subscribe to them. I'm not going to leave right now. We got 5 minutes, but I just want everybody to know before somebody takes off. You know, but I just want them to come and check out your channel, subscribe, and watch all the videos.
Yeah, go check out Ken's channel.
And I like his camera work because I don't have to take nausea pills watching it like my own. Mine, you need a motion sickness pill. It's horrible.
My first videos weren't that way. They were pretty rough, but you learn as you go.
Man, that's really good. And cleaning up after yourselves, that's fantastic too. Get all the trash out of there.
We threatened to take a trash can out there to see if they'd even try to use it.
I think that would be a great idea, just to see if you can project the thought when you take it out there.
Oh,
If they would be able to, okay.
Yeah. Show them.
Put it on the trash.
But that's another bizarre thing that happens whenever we're out there and we're walking and we're talking amongst ourselves and talking to the camera. We'll make a statement or come up with a topic of something, and the very next time we go out, it has happened in some fashion.
Or sometimes in the same day.
So I know they're eavesdropping.
Nosy body.
Well, we have a question here from Ethan. Do you guys think Sasquatch travels, and how far?
As far as they need to.
For food and
for anything. If
they're not limited to this, physical right here space, and they're able to go in and out, there's no reason to say that they can't go hither, tither, and yon.
Distance is, I don't know that, in that whole quantum thought, time and distance aren't exactly what we think they really are anyway. So it might be just like jumping train tracks, not to get too out there, but with all their other gifts, it wouldn't surprise me if they couldn't just think. We've heard stories about people hunting them or wounding one or killing one or whatever, and then they tell the nightmare story about
the rest of the troop come in and taking their revenge.
There's a reckoning. And I'm thinking, okay, number one, how did they know where they lived? And number two, how far could that have been? And I'm kind of thinking that we have that energy imprint in that
they're able to follow it.
Matrix or whatever it is.
Once they've marked it, they know it.
Yep. They energy print like we would hunt deer, or anything else with a track.
Yeah, you guys haven't been there long enough to find out if they hibernate, like travel, not just travel, but migrate. Yeah. Do you think they migrate maybe around your area or no?
I don't know. We haven't seen any signs of it. To give you a little bit of a spoiler alert, though, we have been seeing some indications of some new ones coming into the space, finding some different size tracks and different shaped footprints that weren't there a week or so ago. So I don't know if somebody's getting nosy or if somebody's challenging the space, or if they've kind of integrated grandma and grandpa or whatever. I don't know the answer to that, but there's been a few different tracks that we found that aren't consistent with the ones that we're familiar with.
And they they don't feel like they've been, like there's something about the track. We surely would have seen one in all this time. It's a young one, and you think a female for sure. But their behaviors have been a little different, and
a lot more standoffish.
And so we're wondering if it has to do with this outside influence, or if they have integrated, maybe the outside influence is watching us, and kind of getting familiar with. They may not have the experience with people. We don't know.
Well, you know what? We're at an hour right now, and we're going to leave people hanging on that thought. And we really appreciate you guys coming on and telling us all of your interesting stories and stuff like that. And we can't wait to have you on again next week.
Man, no kidding.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody else joining in with us tonight. And you get a chance, check it out. You might like some of it, might hate some of it, but look at it with an open mind. Look at a few more than just one before you pass judgment.
Oh, yes. Go check out Ken King on YouTube.
You won't be
Absolutely incredible stuff. You watching the videos will explain a lot of what they're describing here today. It's incredible what they got going on. And with that, I thank you. And we will see you all next week. Same
Thank
time, same place. All right. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.